think of Andrew Berry not talking?
I was a little surprised, but just assumed he would talk immediately after the deadline, and that would be our full Andrew Berry experience.
Well, you see, I made a big deal of Kobe Altman not talking after a season once, and we did a counter, and we understood that maybe his job was up for grabs at that point. But I mean, that was rumor; it was never confirmed. But then he did speak. It took 11 days, if I'm not mistaken. But then he did speak at the end of the season. Well, if I'm going to hold Kobe, who, by the way, has had a much higher success rate, I better hold Andrew accountable. Because they asked Mary Kay about it yesterday on Baskin and Phelps. Dan Mennigan in for Baskin. This is what she had to say.
I think the thing that makes it weird is the fact that he's done it every single year since they have been here. The thing that doesn't make it weird is that most other GMs don't do it. When you look around the AFC North, most of those guys don't come out and speak at the bye week, and it's not a common thing that necessarily happens around the league. A lot of times, NFL teams will want their coach to be the spokesman for the football team during the season, and then the GM talks at other various points, pre-draft and in training camp and whatnot, combine and owners meetings. But during the season, a lot of teams want their coach to just be front and center and not have someone else out there talking. So they made their decision this year to do it this way, and I know they're getting pushback on it, and people are confused about it, and maybe they'll change it up again next year, but this is what they decided to do.
Well, if you made your decision, then when did they make the decision? If they made the decision before the year, they should have told people before the year, because when you don't speak, I think something's up. When you don't speak and you're 5-20 over the last couple of years, and you did speak last year, I think something's up. And then it puts your head coach in a different position, and this is a problem I've had. I had this problem with every head coach since the fan has been on the situation they were put in with. Every head coach since the fan has been on the air is your season usually is going off the rails, and you put them in a position to answer questions that they really shouldn't have to answer, because the only thing you have to ask are roster questions, trade questions. So you make Kevin, the head coach, guarantee he's going to have to answer a Myles Garrett possibly being traded question. He has to answer a David Njoku possibly being traded question, or whoever you want to list down the line. Any of those things that are really, you can't call them proprietary. You can ask them questions, but that's really what a general manager is supposed to answer. And so if you guys are thought partners, you kind of got to stand in there since you made it your tradition. When it's something that's become normal over time, you really got to stand in there, and if there's such a thing as facing the music, you really got to stand in there and face the music. It comes off odd, and it comes like you're shying away from the media when you do that.
Well, especially considering the availabilities we've had from Andrew Berry. I'll say, like, the press conferences compared to when he joins us on the radio, because we'll get nitty-gritty with him on just what it's like to be a GM, and he'll have really, really thoughtful answers that I kind of plug away in my mind and go, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that's how the job worked. Right now, fans don't care about any of that stuff. They just want answers for why the team is what the record is. Regardless of whether we prepared you for how bad of a season it could be, or if Vegas prepared you, like, it still isn't going to matter compared to the answers that he gives you. And as we know, he doesn't really, nor does Kevin really give you anything when pressed on those things. Like, if you're Andrew Berry and we ask you about Myles, they'll say, well, we don't really disclose publicly some of the private conversations we have with our players. Okay, here's a follow-up. Yeah, but Myles looked very irritated on the sideline, and he'll say, yes, our players do get emotional about outcomes, and we actually like that about them. And then that's all they give you.
Yes.
So it doesn't ever satiate anybody when you do it. But I get what you're saying.
It's also part of the job.
Yeah, it's part of the job. You're not going to make a lot of money.
I don't think there's never been a situation. I mean, there's always going to be some fans on some guys' sides. I'll say this. There's never been a situation when things are going bad that a general manager has come out and talked, or a team president has come out and talked, and the vast majority of Browns fans,
Ooh, okay.
You know what? I understand. I see the vision now. I totally understand. But part of the job is giving them what they want. And what they want is their pound of flesh in so many ways. So they want you on the record explaining why their football team, what they live and breathe with, is struggling again, and what you plan to do about it. And when you fail to do that, it's going to leave people questioning your motives even more.
Yeah, you could even
questioning what you do even more. And then you get ready to hear it where, hey, I'd love to ask him the questions, but he won't talk to us. You know who I always go after when it comes to that stuff? I do the same thing with Paul DiPodesta. Because what have I said how many times before over the last decade? You only come around at the beginning of the season and when things are going well.
Well, we used to have Paul on weekly, and that was fun. He would give us a lot of intel, and that's right, we've never had him.
I was going to say, like, what? I was like, is there an era in this station that I didn't know
Think about that. The guy is, the confidant of Jimmy Haslam, one of the most important people in the organization. Some would say he is the preeminent, most influential person in the organization. Has anybody had access to him?
No.
So then they can't get mad at us. By the way, the Browns can never get mad at us for speculating on who in the building, because I've heard it a lot on the afternoon show. They have been trying to figure out who's responsible for Dylan Gabriel. And if you're the Browns, you can never get mad at us speculating because you never know. You've never given us intel. We've never heard from any of the...
Well, even in the past, though, like when Hugh Jackson said, Cody Kessler was his guy, and then we found out, not really.
Right. This guy's taking bullets for others.
He was just go ahead and do it. Yeah. So, again, I could understand him waiting until after the trade deadline, but if you're not going to come out and talk at all, then I got to use it against you if things continue to go poorly because you don't let anybody in. And I don't think it's going to do any good. I don't think if he came out and he explained himself that would do any good. But you still kind of got to do it for the fans at some point. And it's not a requirement. Plenty of other teams don't do it, but you've done it. And so when you don't do it and things aren't going well, I'm going to think different things. And I think it's going to bother a lot of fans. And it does bother a lot of fans. Well, let me see what Nick on the road thinks. Hello, Nick.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking the call.
Maybe it doesn't bother you, Nick.
Oh, it bothers the hell out of me.
Oh, really?
But here's the issue. I understand why they make the decisions that they make from the top down. Jimmy Haslam, D. Haslam, J.W. Johnson, Paul DiPodesta, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski. Guys, they don't give a damn about the fans, about the media, about Browns history. They just don't care. They're making money. They have no way to lose money because in the NFL, you can't lose money. They could literally play in front of 0 fans at that stadium when they have home games.
I got to tell you, the thing I got to disagree with you on there, Nick, is, Art Modell found ways to lose money in the NFL. Even when he was in Baltimore, he was losing his ass.
Art Modell was a terrible business owner. We are well aware of that.
Yeah.
The man had to take out a home equity loan to pay Andre Rison.
He did. Had to go to 5 different banks. Love telling that story.
Now the billions of dollars that are part of contracts now, even though contracts certainly did exist back in Modell days, they were not as plentiful. They were not as high dollar as they are now. Guys, they just don't care. They know. They actually know how much the Browns mean to Northeast Ohio and how much they mean to the fan base and how much they mean to passionate media guys, like you, media guys and gals that have been, covering the team for decades. But they just don't care. And that's what makes it so frustrating. They don't give a damn about the fans, the media, the history of the Browns, nothing. Have a great day, guys.
Nick, thank you very much for the call. When you don't speak, you're going to get calls like that. It's kind of how that goes. Because I could sit here and say, well, actually, I think at times they've cared too much. I think they've made serious decisions based on fan sentiment. In fact, I know they've made serious decisions here. I think based on fan sentiment over the last how many years. But that's just me talking. That's not confirmed. Again, when Andrew doesn't say anything and things aren't going well, then people are just going to accuse you of hiding from him. And that's not a good thing for a football team. It makes the situation so much worse. I know there's nothing good that you can say about a team that's 2-6 and everybody's talking about trading away your biggest players. You can wait until after the trade deadline, but I feel that after you've made it your own tradition, you've been here 6 years, 5 years, a long time to do it, you really need to come out and continue. So Albert Breer was asked this yesterday on Afternoon Drive about not talking, about Albert Breer was asked about Andrew Berry not talking. Here's what Albert had to say.
I think it's always a hard situation, when the coach is have to answer for everything, and like I would sympathize with Kevin on that. It would probably help take some of the heat off of Kevin if Andrew talked. I would agree with that. Again, like all teams do these things different ways, and so it's not unusual that a general manager wouldn't talk during the year. There are plenty of teams that just like basically say once the general manager hands the team off to the coach, start training camp, the general manager doesn't talk. So that's not uncommon, but I'd say in this particular situation, it is a little bit of a weird look when, you're 2-6 and you're going the other way after having him talk you said 5 years, right? The last 5 years.
If you've made it your thing, though, and then you don't do it and you're losing, people think that's weird. Fans think it's weird, and they feel like you're trying to avoid them. That's the way they feel. I'm not the one asking them questions. I'm not going to the press conference. I'll find, guys, it's sports talk radio. I'll find reasons to bitch. So it doesn't matter about him. And honestly, have we really been that type of show that has played answers in press conference? I'm sure it's happened once or twice. But have we ever been, and you've been with us a long time, okay? Have we ever been the type of show to play answers and start ripping one by one?
No.
I mean, if you keep saying the same thing
Especially
over again.
Not this regime. Like, we've had translations before trying to figure out what they're saying.
I'm also just,
we've had that.
There's just nothing, like the Kevin Stefanski press conferences have just become borderline pointless, which I hate to say because we air them live here.
Because he's just trying to get
people
through
tune in for him.
And what I'm thinking is like, okay, if you're thought partners, you're not being a good teammate. Because if you take it away, again, I'm just forced to ask Kevin, or excuse me, Daryl is forced to ask questions to Kevin that are proprietary.
Yeah, Kevin, I apologize for asking a question I normally ask Andrew, but you're here. So with the trade deadline that's coming up here, do you see the team focusing maybe on moves similar to the Greg Newsome, Tyson Campbell trade, where you're more so looking for getting players that can help you now as opposed to picks? And then also, too, what is your role in those conversations when it comes to, looking for help that you need with the roster?
Yeah, you'd have to ask Andrew. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
By the way,
that made me laugh.
By the way, he did give more of an answer after that.
I hate to be inside baseball. Sounds like deja vu to me. Anyway, and by the way, not proprietary, but you could always come out and say, Daryl, that's if Andrew's there, that's kind of what we do in house, and we kind of feel that out in house. I can't talk about anybody else's players right now. But I'll just say that, boy, I do sound like Andrew Dunn. But I'll just say that, yeah, we're not going to look past any sort of moves, and we're going to consider all moves. We're not going to push away all moves. So if there's something that we think makes sense to the future of our franchise, we're willing to make that move. But no, I can't get into any particulars about any players at this time. You could always just come out and say that, and it's not going to make anything any better. It's really not. But at least you've kept the appearance that you're doing your business, because right now, I got way more questions than answers. And thinking about going back to the Myles Garrett stuff. You just signed Myles to a contract months ago. And now the contract looks really, really hard to trade. So now you can trade it and just blow the thing up if you want to do it. But then it makes it sound like you're making it up as you go. So now I don't know where your plans are. I don't know who's in. I don't know who's making the decisions. I don't know who's out. I don't know who's not making the decisions.
Plans can also change.
And they can change.
And sometimes you're forced to change. And there can be external or internal reasons why that would be the case. We would. We'd say, well, why did you sign him if you were just going to trade him? But now, I mean, how does it look? How does it look 8 weeks into the season about the short-term future? I know John Dorsey used to talk about 3 levels of that. Mm-hmm. The immediate, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. You have to kind of analyze all those permutations on what they're going to be. Unfortunately, I find no value right now out of any of the press conferences from the head coach. Or I get more. Jim Schwartz gives really interesting. Maybe at Tommy Rees, I'd like to hear more from, because I tweeted on Monday that I didn't understand the hire of Rees, because they've talked, like Nick Saban talked about him as a dynamic play caller. But if after all is said and done over the next few weeks, if we don't get a change in play calling or a removal of an offensive coordinator, then what was the point of Tommy Rees?
What do you want to hear from him, though? He talks every week. He doesn't say anything of substance, and he's not a guy that is influential on the actual game.
That's
anyway,
what I mean. If he's not influential on the game plans, then why is he here? Then you hired somebody who was unqualified, or you hired somebody who was qualified, but you didn't give them anything to do. Then what was the point of this? Seems like a charade. So I'd like to know, because people in other walks of life, in his former jobs, they're like, oh my God, Tommy Rees is a shooting star. But he only was in the NFL for 1 year before he was here. And the Browns, at the crossroads that they're at, didn't they need someone a little more qualified? Because the last guy they brought in, Ken Dorsey, what are we saying about that hire and then subsequent firing? So what was the point of any of that? Right now, I would hold them to the fire on that a little bit more, because they need all the help they can get offensively. And if he's not good enough, or you're seeing him every day and you're like, yeah, I'm Kevin Stefanski, I probably could divert my attention to other parts of the team, as we are one of the worst teams in football again. If you're not willing to do that and cede some of that, then that was a bad hire. You shouldn't have brought him in.
I got no fight towards that. The only thing I could think of is that if he did relinquish those, then again, where's the power structure with Stefanski? This would be the second time you've given up play calling duties. I mean, good God. Now, I think that's been done before, even by successful coaches. I think that's happened before. And there's even, you go to the college level, there's guys who have, quote unquote, given up play calling, and then you can tell when you watch their offense, especially in the guys who are offensive guys, you can tell when you watch their offense exactly when they take over play calling, especially with one certain team out there. But I think that with them, you're left to explain the unexplainable. Because, again, if he takes over play calling, great. But then again, why did I have play calling then in the first place, especially if it goes well? Why did I take it back over in the first place? If it doesn't go well, then this whole thing's just an absolute mess regardless. At least I'd have some better answers if he were to take it back over. 216-474-0092. Alvis in Cleveland. All right, Alvis, let's try it again. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you.
This whole situation, this whole carousel with this team, man, is just totally pathetic. It's total dysfunction. It's dysfunction inside that locker room from the front office all the way down. Then with the situation with Myles Garrett, he should have just really stood strong. There's no need to get frustrated, slamming helmets. He knew what was going on from the beginning. He knew that this team.
Well, Alvis, stay with me. Alvis, stay with me here. Wait a minute. You knew how this was going on. You don't get mad on Sundays at all?
No. Yeah.
Okay. So why can't he throw a helmet and get mad?
No. He's allowed to do what he wants. But I'm just saying, though, he had his opportunity to get out of here. He had his opportunity to get out. He chose to go for the money. So therefore, you got to. That's just like if you stand. That's just what you guys. If you guys are on the radio and you don't like what's going on, but they come to you and work something out where you're going to make a little bit more money, and you say, okay, you know what? Well, I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna see what's up, and then it's still don't nothing change.
Yeah.
Like it's you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But it's dysfunction. That's my point to all this is dysfunction. Nobody's happy. There's no communication. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry doesn't seem like they're on the right page. Paul DePodesta and Jimmy Haslam, they don't seem like nobody's on the right page with this. And I just don't understand, like, how do you guys, what are they practicing?
Well,
like,
honestly, if I could share a theory with you, Alvis, I really do. I think everybody was lockstep until the Deshaun Watson trade has gone awry. And now I think that you have some people who are just trying to make this thing better some way, somehow, as quickly as possible, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse, and it's showing through the play on the field. And Kevin Stefanski, he's gonna ride with Dylan Gabriel until the wheels fall off. I mean, which is fine. That's his guy. That's who he wanted. So he has to deal with the consequences. But what's going to happen if they lose against the Jets? After this bye, where they supposed to have reset and everybody's supposed to know what's going on. What's going to happen if they lose to the Jets? Is he still going to play with Dylan Gabriel? Is he going to make the change? We don't know. We don't even know if Shador's going to flourish in this offense because, for real, like everybody that's under Kevin Stefanski doesn't do quite well. But when they go somewhere else, it seems as though that they open up and they do very well.
I have to ask that question of Shador fans because I said what I said on Monday and I stand by it. I'm tired. I don't need to see Dylan Gabriel anymore. I think that Shedeur Sanders could have a high ceiling, and I want to see whether or not that's accurate or not. I want to see Shedeur play. If he can physically do it, I know his back's bothering him. If he can do him, I want him to play. But I have to ask a Shedeur Sanders fan, do you trust what is over top of him when it comes to play calling? Do you trust the coaching? Do you trust the offensive line? Like, there's three things that are going to be marked against him the second he hits the field for the Browns. When he hits the field.
Yeah, he's got to overcome all of that.
He's got to overcome all that out.
One more thing before I go.
Quick.
But I got a question. I got one question.
Quick.
Now, the difference between Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur is this. When Shedeur gets in and he see that the play that they call isn't right, he's going to audible. Tell me, answer this question. I want to answer this question.
Go.
Since Dylan Gabriel's been playing, how many times have you seen him come to the line and audible?
I don't know if I have. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the call, Elvis. I don't know if I have. Have you?
Well, but by the way, do we know, is Shedeur going to be given those opportunities?
I would imagine not.
I don't think he will.
No.
They're going to say
he is.
They're going to say run the play that was picked. And now, there's freelancing when you have to get out of the pocket. Dylan Gabriel, we were sold on his mobility, and I haven't seen a ton of it.